It is said to be a truly terrifying movie. Ghost Rape, Ghost Maiden, Curse of the Village, Evil Souls, and Suicide Sanctuary. Each stitch in every section of the film thoroughly showcases the distinctive beauty found in Southeast Asian horror cinema. The following day, May and her girlfriend encountered their teacher, Naya, in the elevator while heading to school. Just as the elevator door was closing, a weary-looking uncle suddenly approached, ranting and raving about needing Naya to save his life. On her hand, which was holding the door shut, there was a peculiar symbol suggesting some kind of ominous situation. In the evening, while May was reviewing her homework with her friends, a loud, strangled noise was heard from without, and the people rushed to the spot, where they saw Uncle Dai standing on the balcony, and trying to kill himself. While all the people were fearful on this occasion, May was calm and collected, for she could see no sign of death in the body of the man, who, in the next moment, jumped down from his feet, and this was the first time that May's judgment had been mistaken, and while she was wondering about it, she saw Naya running back to the village, as if in a panic, to the house. Just as she was puzzled by this, she saw Naya running back to the office in a state of panic. May realized that the man's death was definitely related to the teacher, so she hurriedly followed her to inquire about the situation. In response to May's questioning, Naya remained silent, urging her to leave quickly. The following morning, Xiaomei hurried to the school to discover what was happening, only to learn that Naya was on vacation and that she and the man who had leapt off the building the previous night were from the same village. This thought made Xiaomei increasingly uneasy. Concerned for her teacher's safety, she packed her bags, contacted her friends, and headed to a village named Remetuk. This village was peculiar, as cars could only park at the kiosk at its edge. The old board kindly cautioned the three friends to turn back, warning that it was harvest season, a time when people often died mysteriously, and entering the village now could cost them their lives. Despite this warning, the trio entered the village, where a harvest celebration was underway. Upon seeing them, one villager quickly instructed them to remove their shoes and use water to cleanse the evil spirits they might have brought from the outside. Soon after that, she noticed the three students, and before they could greet them, the village headman's daughter came out with a solemn face and warned them that the village was holding an annual festival, during which they should not talk, nor walk about, or else disaster might follow. But as soon as that was said, a man on a bicycle rushed by and dug his head into a sharp nail. But strangely enough, the people there didn't react. They just went about their business as if death was a common occurrence in this place, and even more puzzling was the fact that once again, they hadn't foreseen their own deaths. The group stayed at Naya's house, and on the table, her girlfriend found a leaflet on mental health, so that's why Naya came back to the village after 2 decades. Over the years, there have been a lot of suicides in the village. She attempted to scrub it with her hands, but things only got worse and worse. It seemed like any one of them could have died at any moment. Later in the afternoon, May was invited to observe the counseling session. However, the boudoir girl, positioned at the end of the line, suddenly heard a piercing sound and felt as if she was being followed by someone. As evening approached, she began to appear strange, doing peculiar things with a fruit knife in her hand, while a dark shadow drifted by behind her. Thankfully, Xiaomei and the others arrived just in time to prevent a tragedy. With less than half an hour remaining before the counseling meeting, Xiaomei wanted to invite her girlfriend to join her, but she declined and returned to her room to play with her cell phone alone. But then, something terrifying happened. She was so frightened that she dashed out of the room in a hurry, just in time to be seen by Xiaomei and the others who were at the meeting. But when the two of them went after her, they saw that she was hanging herself. It was not easy for them to pull her back from the brink of death, but the next moment, she ran into the house as if she had lost her mind. When they saw this, they took out their mobile phones and groped for a boy who was sitting in the center of the room without moving. The next morning, the villagers held a burial ceremony for the boy. When the body was lowered into the pit, the boy's milky mother climbed to the edge of the pit to say goodbye to her grandson, but then she saw a pair of female hands break through the ground and wrap around the body in a tight embrace. After the incident, something strange happened to her girlfriend. She found that her hands had the same marks as those of the man in the lift at the school she had been with before she tried to scrub the body with her hands, but she couldn't do it without a good reason. Oddly, when she checked, it was empty, but she couldn't shake it off. She had to dip her head in water to wake up. Then, the ghost returned, and she almost drowned. At that moment, she broke free from her uncle. Meanwhile, the village headmistress was puzzled why her father let the curse continue. If it did, they would all die unknowingly. The village had been cursed for years, and each harvest, people mysteriously died. The headman's daughter urged him to lift the curse, but he believed only a few would die yearly, and the next year would be good. He thought having enough food was better. The daughter angrily threw a cup, confused about life's purpose. After a moment, he picked up the pieces. And there it was. At that moment, a piercing sound rang in her ears, followed by a few straws falling from her head, and through the remaining light, she sensed a ghostly shadow approaching behind her, but strangely, when she got up to check, there was nothing there at all. The father hears a noise and checks, finding his daughter hurting herself. It appeared as though the curse had extended its reach to her home. The following morning, the villagers gathered to hold a harvest ceremony in the farmyard. However, in the midst of the celebration, the old nurse spotted a ghost with an open face among the crowd. Overcome with terror, she lost her senses completely. In her panic, she grabbed a sickle and began swinging it wildly, ultimately cutting her own neck in front of everyone. Driven to madness, she attempted to flee the village, but after running around repeatedly, she found herself unable to escape. With no other options, she returned to her room. At that moment, she began reviewing the video footage taken earlier in the day, only to suddenly witness a scene where a female ghost appeared to be controlling the old lady, forcing her to take her own life. May's arrival was crucial, saving her life, yet all she witnessed was her friend's self-harming actions. A series of bizarre events compelled May to seek the truth from her teacher, Naya. While it was known that curses were part of the village lore, Naya maintained that they were merely manifestations of the human psyche. To calm the villagers, Tam decided to undertake a journey to scientifically disprove the existence of curses, vowing to take responsibility for her mother's death before she passed away. He assured that the curse would disappear upon his return to the village, yet she couldn't shake the belief that the curse was indeed real. That very night, Naya awoke from her dream to find several bodies hanging around her, a haunting sight. The sudden death struck May with a heavy blow. She wanted to take sleeping pills to numb her grief, but just then, that familiar piercing sound echoed once more. Immediately after, a scarecrow crawled out from under the bed, grabbing a handful of pills and forcing them into her mouth. Once the ghost vanished, May completely coveted her bed, unaware that in her blissful state, she had glimpsed the ghost's memories. 40 years ago, there was an unusual drought in the village, causing all the planted grain to vanish. The village headman believed it was a divine punishment, suggesting a human sacrifice to appease the gods. Tragically, a young girl of only 15 was chosen as one of the ghosts. That night, she was brutally beaten to death by the villagers and turned into a scarecrow, planted in the field. Her mother, upon discovering the incident, was overwhelmed with grief but powerless. Before her death, she cursed the village. But on that night, my girlfriend cursed the land, swearing that even if the land became fertile, each time there was a harvest, all the villagers who had enjoyed the food would be doomed to kill themselves. The girl, who had died alongside her mother completely out of breath, was instantly turned into a ghost and then began a long, decades-spanning quest for vengeance. Not long after, my girlfriend and Yen found May passed out and saved her from the ghost gate. May then recounted to Yen what she had witnessed, but at that moment, her girlfriend turned a knife on herself and dashed out of the house like a madwoman. However, when May was prepared to follow, the door to the room closed on its own. A piercing sound, the ghost stilled, emerged from behind the mirror, pulled out a rope, and tried to strangle her. But just in time, May arrived and saved her, while the villagers were being tortured to death. May rushed to the mayor, claiming she knew how to break the curse. 40 years ago, the mayor's grandfathers traded their daughters' lives for fertile land and tasty food. Now, to break the curse and save the villagers, the mayor must seek the woman's forgiveness. Hearing this, the mayor understands the curse's meaning and sets fire to himself in the old barn. As he and the food turn to ashes, the curse is broken. At the movie's end, May and the others return to school. Time passes, and it's harvest time. My girlfriends. That night, my girlfriend was haunted again by a ghost with a knife. The curse wasn't truly lifted, a greater calamity loomed. That's it for today's story. I'm Yasser Arafat. Subscribe for more interesting horror videos. See you next time.